Paranormal or not, what was the scariest thing to ever happen to you? I got stopped on dark road once by a stray pup. He came running towards my bike and I stopped to check on her. She was shaking, and before I could understand, two dudes came around with a stick in their hand and asked me to give them the pup. I didn't think well. I just put the pup in front of me and drove away really fast. Fostered the pup for a week, and my friend adopted it later. Informed police about the situation. It was scary as shit for me. The news headline: two men playing fetch with their new puppy distraught after encountering thief on a bicycle. In the old neighborhood where I grew up, there was an abandoned windmill that had once been used to pump water. One day I was playing with friends in the lot around the huge windmill, and all of a sudden the large wooden blade starting rotating, something we had never seen happen before. For years it had stood motionless. If one of my friends hadn't yanked me away, a windmill blade would probably have whacked my body. Free Ferris wheel. Woke up in the middle of the night to horrific pain in my abdomen. Turns out I'd had an undiagnosed ulcer perforate in my intestines, and it had flooded my abdominal cavity. I couldn't move, and my 2.5-week-old daughter was in her cot next to me. That was the most terrifying thing ever. The pain was 10x worse than childbirth, and I thought I was going to die next to her. Oh my gosh, what happened after that? Thankfully my mom had stayed at mine that night to help out. I had to physically shout for her. She called an ambulance and I got taken into hospital whilst she stayed with my daughter. I had to have emergency surgery, briefly be put into a medical coma, 4 days in ITU, then more time recovering on a ward. This was a little over 2 months ago, so my daughter wasn't allowed in to visit me at all, which was really shit. I have a pretty epic battle scar to show for it all now. It's nothing compared to some of these, but I got peer pressured into facing my biggest fear, and it did not go well. On a trip to Mexico, my family pressured me into facing my terror of deep water by jumping into a cenote. Very clear, deep pool in a cave. Being 16 and an idiot, I eventually did, and panicked so badly when I hit the water that I actually have no memory of getting out. The next thing I knew, I was back on land, crying and gasping for air. I apparently climbed back out on my own at lightning speed, but it was so stressful that I actually blacked out. It's the only time in my life so far that primal instinct literally overtook me. Shit, that's scary. Did you tell your parents that you didn't like being pressured and doing that? It was a trip with our family friends, so it was more my brother and the 2 kids in the other family that were daring me versus my parents. I wasn't happy about it, but ultimately I went in on my own accord. It would be very, very different if they had pushed me in, but it didn't feel right to tattle when I could have said no. Happened to my friend. He was playing soccer with his friends. The ball accidentally got kicked into an abandoned house near the playground. The whole neighborhood know that no one lives in that house, and it's always dark in there. As soon as the ball got past the house wall, the ball immediately got thrown back onto the monsieur. Thank you, Satan, I guess. Honestly, it was probably just a homeless person squatting in it. I really like this one. It has Sandlot vibes. Boo Radley vibes. This one is going to sound stupid compared to life or death stories, but I was leaving some voicemails as part of my workday. Sometimes I'll have a YouTube video queued up to watch in between calls while I'm working on emails, etc. So I get done with a voicemail and turn around to play my video. That day I was watching some true crime documentaries, and it was a story of some sicko who kept a girl in his shed and did awful things to her. The host was describing these terrible things, and I turned and saw that the voicemail phone was still recording. So I had potentially left a 4-minute message full of vulgar true crime descriptions on this poor dude's voicemail. I had to get up and go curl into the fetal position in my living room for a while because I was so sure that was it for my job. Either the dude would call back furious, or QA would catch the call and send it to my manager. As I lay there, I wondered what would happen to my mortgage, how I'd be able to afford to eat once I was fired, etc. Thankfully, my headset mic is super good at blocking out background noise. So I tested by calling my own cell phone voicemail and letting another video at the same volume run, to see if I'd be able to hear it, and I couldn't. There was just a low murmur of some kind of background noise, but nothing discernible. But I still had to medicate myself after I got off work so that I wouldn't be freaking out about it, to the point I wouldn't sleep. Nothing ended up coming of it, thank God, but I definitely had one of those "ooh, I'm fucked" panic moments right then and there. I'm sorry, but I laughed. When I was 16, I was being blackmailed by someone who found a nude photo of me and was threatening to show it to everyone. Because I was so young and scared, I let him abuse me and blackmail me. I was very depressed and suicidal at the time, and the blackmail only made it worse. One day, I told him I no longer cared about what he did with the photo and that I no longer had a desire to live. Instead of posting the photo, he threatened to kill my family. Of course, I called his bluff and told him he didn't know where I lived. I was wrong. He knew everything about me and my family. I felt like I was being selfish at the time, but I said he wouldn't be able to get to me if I killed myself first. His threats continued for days, while I contemplated actually ending my life. A few days after his initial threat, I got a call from a blocked number. "Hi monsieur," he told me I had 36 hours to do what he said or he'd go through with his plans. I hung up and called the police. They deemed it a prank call and left it alone. The day after the call, I went to the store with my sister. She had already gone inside, but I was wedged between this big van. The man didn't move or get out. He just stared at me. I opened my door to get out. So did he. I waited for him to go. So did he. After a while, I got frustrated and got out of the car. He got out behind me and immediately grabbed me by my neck and tried to force me into his van. I panicked and bit his hand and stomped on his foot. He let go just enough for me to sprint inside. When I turned to look back, he was already gone. I told my sister about it. She didn't believe me. That night, I stayed up a little longer because I was feeling sick. The front door knob started to turn. I snuck off to grab a knife and looked out the window. It was the same van as before. I grabbed my phone to call the police, but he left. I checked the other sides of the house. He started to try and break in through the back door as well, and then the basement door. He eventually started to pry open the garage door when a police car started coming up the hill to do his rounds. I live in one of those neighborhoods. The man got into his van and left. I never heard from him since. We moved the following year to a different house, and I never knew if he posted the pictures or not. To this day, no one believes me. They said it was a prank gone wrong, but I know what it was. Well, I'm sorry nobody is taking you seriously. If it makes you feel better, I believe you. And I'm sorry that happened to you. That sounds really traumatizing. And I hope you're in a better place mentally now. Thank you so much for watching and have a good day.